Imagine spending your entire fortune searching for a city made of gold. That's exactly what thousands of explorers did for over 300 years. They called it El Dorado, the Golden City. But here's the twist. It never existed the way they thought. The El Dorado legend began with a simple ceremony in Colombia. Picture this like a modern-day festival or celebration. Every year, the Muisca people held a special ritual at Lake Guatavita. Their new chief would cover himself in gold dust from head to toe. Then he would dive into the lake with golden offerings. Spanish conquistadors heard about this golden man ceremony. They called him El Dorado, which means the golden one. But something interesting happened over time. The story grew bigger and bigger with each telling. Think about how rumors spread in your school or neighborhood. One person says they saw something amazing. The next person adds more details. Soon, the story becomes much bigger than the truth. That's exactly what happened with El Dorado. The Golden Man became a golden city. The Golden City became an entire golden kingdom. Explorers started believing there was a place where gold covered every building and street. The Spanish had already found incredible riches in Mexico and Peru. They had seen the Aztec and Inca empires with their massive gold treasures. So believing in another golden civilization seemed perfectly reasonable. Maps from the 1500s showed El Dorado as a real place. Cartographers drew it somewhere in the Amazon rainforest or the mountains of South America. These maps guided countless expeditions into the unknown wilderness. The legend spread across Europe like wildfire. Kings and queens funded expensive expeditions. Wealthy merchants invested their life savings. Common people sold everything they owned to join the search parties. But here's what makes this story fascinating. The Muisca ceremony was real. The Golden Man existed. But he wasn't ruling a city of gold. He was just performing a religious ritual that honored their gods. The Europeans had taken a grain of truth and built an entire fantasy around it. They created the perfect treasure hunt story in their minds. Have you ever heard a story that sounded too good to be true? What made you believe it or doubt it? Hundreds of expeditions searched for El Dorado between 1530 and 1800. Let's talk about some of the most famous disasters. It's like watching people make the same mistake over and over again, even when they know others failed before them. Gonzalo Pizarro led one of the earliest major expeditions in 1541. He started with 220 Spanish soldiers and 4,000 native guides. They planned to be gone for just a few months. Instead, they wandered through the Amazon jungle for 2 years. By the end of their journey, only 80 men survived. They had eaten their horses, their leather equipment, and even tree bark. Pizarro returned home completely broke and empty-handed. Sir Walter Raleigh made 2 separate attempts to find El Dorado. The famous English explorer was convinced the city lay somewhere in modern-day Venezuela. His first expedition in 1595 found nothing but mosquitoes and disease. But Raleigh didn't give up. He tried again in 1617 when he was already 65 years old. This second expedition was an even bigger disaster. His son died in a battle with Spanish soldiers. Raleigh returned to England and was executed for his failures. Think about your favorite video game or puzzle. How many times do you try the same level before giving up? These explorers kept trying the same impossible quest for centuries. The jungle defeated most expeditions before they even got close. Tropical diseases killed more men than any battle ever could. Poisonous snakes, deadly insects, and infected water were constant threats. Many groups simply vanished completely. They walked into the rainforest and were never seen again. No letters, no survivors, no trace of what happened to them. Some expeditions turned to violence and slavery. They forced local tribes to guide them or provide food. This created even more problems and made the journeys more dangerous. The costs were astronomical. One expedition spent the equivalent of millions of modern dollars, all for a city that didn't exist. Why do you think people kept trying when so many others had failed? The irony is that explorers walked past real treasures every single day. Imagine searching for a specific brand of phone in a store. You're so focused on finding that one model that you ignore all the other valuable electronics around you. That's exactly what happened to El Dorado seekers. The Amazon rainforest contains incredible natural resources. Rubber trees, medicinal plants, exotic spices, and rare woods surrounded every expedition. But the explorers only had eyes for gold and silver. Local indigenous tribes possessed amazing knowledge about the jungle. They knew which plants could cure diseases. They understood how to navigate the dangerous rivers. They had sustainable ways to live in the rainforest. This knowledge was worth more than any golden city. But the Europeans dismissed it as worthless. They saw the native people as obstacles instead of teachers. The Spanish did find some gold during their searches. They discovered several real gold mines in Colombia and Venezuela. But these actual treasures seemed disappointing compared to their fantasy city. Think about Christmas morning when you're expecting one specific gift. Even amazing presents can feel disappointing if they're not the exact thing you wanted. Many expeditions passed right by ancient indigenous cities. These settlements had incredible architecture, art, and cultural treasures. But explorers ignored them because they weren't made of gold. The biodiversity of the Amazon was another treasure they completely missed. Scientists today study rainforest plants to develop new medicines. Many modern drugs come from compounds first used by jungle tribes. Some of the failed expeditions made important geographical discoveries. They mapped new rivers, identified mountain ranges, and documented unknown species. But these achievements felt like consolation prizes. The real tragedy is how much knowledge was lost. When expeditions enslaved or killed local people, they destroyed libraries of oral tradition. Stories, medicines, and survival techniques vanished forever. European diseases also devastated indigenous populations. Entire tribes disappeared, taking their wisdom with them. This was a far greater loss than any imaginary golden city. The jungle held real treasures in every tree, plant, and stream. But the explorers were too blinded by gold fever to see them. What valuable things do you think people overlook in their daily lives? The search for El Dorado changed South America forever in ways we still see today. Think about how a major construction project affects your neighborhood. Roads get built, landscapes change, and new people move in. The El Dorado expeditions had similar effects across an entire continent. Spanish and Portuguese explorers established permanent settlements during their searches. These became the foundations of modern cities like Caracas, Bogotá, and Manaus. Many of South America's major cities started as supply bases for treasure hunters. The expeditions created the first detailed maps of the Amazon basin. Explorers documented river systems, mountain ranges, and jungle paths. This geographic knowledge helped future colonization efforts. But the human cost was enormous. Indigenous populations dropped by up to 90% in some areas. European diseases killed millions of native people who had no immunity to smallpox, measles, and typhus. The search expeditions also established trade routes through the jungle. These paths later became major commercial highways. Goods, people, and ideas flowed along routes first carved out by El Dorado seekers. Mining became a major industry, partly because of these expeditions. Even though they never found the Golden City, explorers did discover real gold and silver deposits. Countries like Colombia and Venezuela built their economies around mining. The legend influenced South American culture in surprising ways. Local folklore mixed indigenous stories with European treasure tales. Today, El Dorado appears in movies, books, and tourist attractions across the continent. Environmental damage from the expeditions lasted for centuries. Explorers introduced non-native plants and animals to fragile ecosystems. They also began the pattern of viewing the rainforest as something to exploit rather than protect. The social structure of South America changed dramatically. Spanish colonial systems replaced indigenous governments. New languages, religions, and customs spread throughout the continent. Modern treasure hunting continues today. People use metal detectors and satellite imagery to search for El Dorado. The legend refuses to die completely. some positive changes did occur. The mixing of European, Indigenous, and African cultures created rich new traditions in art, music, and food. How do you think one powerful story can change an entire continent's history? The search for El Dorado shows how a simple ceremony became a continental obsession. Hundreds of expeditions failed because they chased an impossible dream. They missed real treasures like indigenous knowledge and natural resources. The quest changed South America forever through colonization and cultural mixing. Sometimes the most powerful force in history isn't what exists, but what people believe might exist. What do you think about this 300-year treasure hunt? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more historical adventures.